I'll never forget the first time I ever met Jackie Fargo. I was a huge wrestling fan, and I would go to the matches with my dad on Monday nights. And at that time, they weren't even at the Coliseum yet; they were at the old Ellis Auditorium in downtown Memphis, and so we would go to the matches and watch him on Saturday mornings. And I guess he was the most flamboyant guy that would come through Memphis. He had the long bleach blonde hair, and he more so, I don't know, I think in that time most people looked at the wrestlers as being all from Memphis, but Jackie, everybody knew, and they announced him as being from New York City. And in reality, he and his so-called brother Don Fargo, the Fabulous Fargos, had wrestled in New York for Vince McMahon Sr. And so he had the big major league credentials, whereas a lot of the other Memphis wrestlers seemed like local Memphis wrestlers. But I sent my little drawings in that I would do of the different wrestlers when I was about maybe 19, I guess. And I drew some wrestlers pictures and sent them to the TV station. And gosh, the one day after I sent them in, Lance Russell, our great announcer, showed my artwork on TV. And it was a picture of, I remember one of the first ones I drew was a picture of Tojo Yamamoto doing a karate chop on Jackie Fargo. And it was chopping Jackie in half, just like a piece of cordwood, like a big piece of, like a tree going timber. And I showed, his left side on one side and his right side on the other. And he was being chopped by this big karate chop from Tojo Yamamoto. So anyway, when they showed this artwork on TV, after the show was over, I got a call from Lance Russell. And he said, Jerry, everybody loved your artwork, and we wondering if you wanted to do some more. He said, but one person in particular really liked your art, and he was wondering if you could come next week, and he wanted to meet you and talk to you about doing some artwork on a club that he owns. And I said, yes, sir. Who's that? And he said, well, Jackie Fargo. And it was like, oh my gosh. And then I realized that he, along with Eddie Bond, who was a local country music singer, owned a club called the Southern Frontier down on Madison Avenue. And Jackie apparently wanted me to come over and paint some caricatures of him and Eddie Bond on the inside of his club. So the next week I got to go over to the Channel 13, and that was the first time I actually got to meet Jackie Fargo. And he's like, hey kid, how you doing? And he's just a big gruff voice, and I was, yes sir, Mr. Fargo, I'm Jerry Lawler, and I don't know, I was just starstruck totally. But then he had me come over and meet him at his club, and we just walked through his club, and he would show me, I'd like something right there, and maybe do a picture of me right there, and something of Eddie right here, and so I wound up working as just doing a lot of artwork for Jackie in the mornings when his club wasn't open yet. He would get there early anyway and kind of get things situated, ready for him to open up for the day. And all of a sudden, I was just getting to pal around with Jackie Fargo away from the wrestling. He would stand and watch me paint, and it was like the most awesome thing to me. I'm sitting there painting a picture of Jackie Fargo, and he's sitting over here watching me, and he's also the biggest TV and wrestling star in the whole, in the world to me, but of course in all of Memphis. So it was very awe-inspiring for me, and I was just totally taken aback by. I'll never forget. I'd go over there and work in the daytime, and then Jackie would. Sometimes at night when he wasn't booked on the road, he would be at his club, and he loved to work down in the kitchen. And it was so crazy. They had a 16-ounce T-bone steak. Ooh. This may be where JR got the phrase from.
Yeehaw.
But they, who did you say? Good old JR. But anyway, this may be where he got the phrase from. But this was in probably 1970. Yeah, I think it was in 1970. And they sold a 16-ounce T-bone steak for $2.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I think that's where JR got the phrase tougher than a $2 steak. But anyway, but that was the deal back then. Then they also had a thing called it was like a double quarter pounder with cheese or something, but he called it a Fargo burger, right? Mm-hmm. And it was this huge big half pound of roast or half pound of ground beef on a bun. And I would work there in the daytime, and then sometimes I had a little 1962 Ford Falcon, and I had a girlfriend, and I would pick her up, and I'd say, "You want to go down by the club and see if we can get a Fargo burger for dinner?" Right now, we weren't old enough to go in the club, so I would come around to the back door, and I walk out the back door, and I bang on the back door, and Jackie, and he had this old black lady that was a cook. He called her Sam, and they would be in the kitchen cooking steaks and making burgers and stuff. And I'm knocking on the door, and finally he'd open the door and say, "Hey, kid, what do you want?" And I was just like so embarrassed. I said, "Well, Mr. Fargo, I was wondering if I could get a couple of those Fargo burgers." I'd be laughing like a goof, I'm just I was just so in awe of the guy, right? And they said, "Yeah, come on in." And I'd have my girlfriend waiting out in the car, right? And I'd stand in there while he'd cook me a couple of Fargo burgers. And inevitably, the poor lady cook that knew him so well, she'd been working for him for years. And he'd say, "Sam, see this kid here? See this Jerry Lawler kid?" She said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Fargo." He said, "Oh, Sam, he said something real bad about you." And he would say supposedly what I had said, which was horrible, and which I had not said about her, right? Yeah. And he said, "Yeah, he said that about you, Sam." And I'm standing there going, "Oh, I was so embarrassed." I go, "No, I swear I didn't say that. I did not say that." But he just loved to embarrass me and just get the best of me at that particular time. I'll never forget one time I was up there painting with my little 62 Ford Falcon, and he comes out of the kitchen. He says, "Hey, kid, give me a ride down to the grocery store. I got to get some lettuce for the night, right, for the salads." And so I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, Jackie Fargo! I'm going to get to drive Jackie Fargo, the fabulous Jackie Fargo, down the street to the grocery store, right?" And so, yes, sir. So we go and we get in my little 62 Ford Falcon, and so he closes the door, and he's on the passenger side, and all of a sudden he scrunches down, way down in the seat where you can't even see his head through the window, right? And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Kid, I'm Jackie Fargo. You don't want people to see me in a shit box like this, do you?" And I was like, I was so proud. Then I was just deflated, and I was like, "Oh my God, my little shit box here that I'm driving him around in." But anyway, it was like he was just the best. I mean, I love the guy. Like we got to have a great relationship. Gosh, so many stories. I mean, when I first. Then Jackie came up with the idea. He liked my artwork so much, and when I painted his picture on every square inch of that club, he came up with the idea with his partner Eddie Bond, who we're partners in the club business with. And Eddie Bond was also the program director on a local radio station, KWAM. And so he gave Jackie an air shift on there, and Eddie Bond had a major air shift and drive time. And so they came up with the idea of starting the Bond Fargo Sign Company. And they said, they'd use their names and they would plug it on the radio. And I would be the artist that would, this was back in the day, like if everybody that had some kind of business where you used a pickup truck or whatever, you'd have the name of your business on the side of your truck. but it would be painted instead of now. Nowadays everything is done with a
With decals and
everything's done with decal or stickers or that sort of thing. But back in the day, it was all painted, and I was actually doing the artwork. I mean, I remember I was just a kid, and they had this little building right next to the southern frontier, and that was my little office. They set that up, and I painted Bond Fargo Sign Company on the window of that, and then so I was just working away as an artist there every day, and oh my gosh, and this, one of those stories. We finally got this big job of this, like a big piece of plexiglass, and it was going to be used in a they had built this metal frame for this sign, and I took the piece of plexiglass and I would paint the wording on it, and then spray the back of it with white paint, and then boom, they'd put it in in this frame, and it had 3 neon lights behind it. So it was just basically a hand painted light up neon sign for a church, and it was a Church of the Nazarene. And so I worked on this thing for days, and they were charging what I thought was a crazy price. Jackie had lined it up with this preacher that he knew for me to do this sign. And so then I was finally done. I was so proud of it. And the preacher comes to pick it up, and Jackie Fargo's there. And the preacher all of a sudden stops, and he looks at it, and I could just see the color drain out of his face. And he looks over at me, didn't say a word. And then he looks back at the sign again, and he said, "You spelt Nazarene wrong." And I had put Nazi, Nazi.
Oh no.
God. And this thing had been painted, and then the whole sheet of plexiglass was ruined, because then I'd spray painted the back of it. And oh my gosh, Jackie Fargo he was so embarrassed, and he reamed me out about that. But oh my gosh, I just had a great time.